Okay guys, can we talk just really quickly? I have some things I'd like to say today. Today, at the request of Mr. Michael Baker, on our next episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit, we're taking a non-patron and elevating their request up to next in line. So everyone, real quick, say, "Thanks, Michael!" Rather than go through the notepad file of all the requests I have, there are a lot, I decided I would rather today talk about something that several people on several occasions have asked me personally about in comments, in messages, on Discord, so on and so forth, because really, it's a really important topic to me. How do you make a campaign versus an optimized party? How do you challenge them? How do you make sure that they don't just run rampant through your world without also running rampant through them as well? It's a really, really difficult subject. A lot of people get it really wrong. And I'm kind of tired of seeing and hearing about that. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And if we cannot change and grow, are we even people? Exactly. Anyway, if you guys are liking what you're seeing, like, subscribe, ding the bell. Today, this is a special episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. And so it goes out to all of my patrons, everyone in my circle, everyone I spoke to in preparation for this video, asking them when they thought they had been unfairly GM'd against as an optimized character or a min-maxer. Because that sucks is why, and I know my experience is but this many of a whole bajillions. So thanks guys, now let's hit it. Okay, so this video is gonna assume a couple of things. I'll get those out of the way first. First things first, it's gonna use a method that is not necessarily one size fits all. This video is more about the notion than it is about exactly what you should do in your games, so take that with a grain of salt. Secondly, it's going to assume a homebrew campaign. It definitely goes without saying that in something like Carrion Crown or Strange Eons or a game where there's going to be a lot of things that are immune to mind affecting, that playing an illusionist or a fearmonger or anything like that may not always be the best idea. Session zeros are important. That is part of the reason why. Thirdly, to tack this on really quickly, if any of my players have a problem with their build and how it interacts with any of the games we're currently in, let me know, we'll work on it. The heart of this video is a question I posted on Black Dragon Gaming's Discord. The idea here is when we have an optimized party, we should not respond to that party with challenges that shut off the party's ability, because that is no longer a challenge. If two people are sword fighting, and one of them happens to be a better sword fighter but is really bad at punching, and you remove his sword, he's probably going to get stabbed to death, right? I think that's totally fair. The same is true for an optimized character. I guess we're going to talk a lot about RP over mechanics in this one, but whatever, that is what it is. This is a narrative-based game. We are telling stories. In those stories, we want the combats to be exciting, correct? Of course. When we use something that causes the player to no longer have access to an ability, there's a chance that we have removed that person from the combat entirely, left to do nothing but use their standard action to open a door, or close a door, or fire that light crossbow, to say nothing of the fact that you've probably caused this player to disengage from your game and play around on his phone, having a bad time and sulking over it. And in case that's about as clear as mud, let's go ahead and discuss what I mean. If the GM from the Wheeler Woe podcast is out here, alright man, I'm gonna eat some crow. Here we go. I think it is important for most casters that want to spec into a certain ability to still take the staple spells. This is generally because, well, if you're an illusionist and you go up against that classic immune to mind affecting sort of thing, you're out of luck. If you're an evocationist who's fighting the dragon whose breath weapon is the same color as your fireball, right, you can't damage him. You should be able to pivot to Grease, Magic Missile, Color Spray, Wall of XYZ, ABC. That's definitely a fair way to prepare for this kind of encounter, but it's also completely unfun if somebody has built just straight into that and has let you, the GM, know either by session zeroing or by actions that that is the playstyle. That said, I think it is never, ever, ever, ever fair to respond to a build like that with an immunity to the build. Sure, they didn't optimize as well as they could. Sure, they didn't build for any situation. But if they did not build that way, if your kineticist wants to just fire, 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 putting him up against fire is not a challenge, it is shut off his ability. So, I propose a change. This number is going to be a little wibbly wobbly, but rather than respond to someone who's really good at one thing by making the bad guys immune to that thing, convert immunity into an increase in saves. Now, again, obviously I'm not saying play on easy mode, this game is hard. No, I will never say that. The game should be hard. Immunities is not hard. Immunities is just one-upping somebody if they can only do that. But if a red dragon takes damage from fire in your world, but gets a +4, say, assuming an equal CR betwixt our pyromancer and our dragon versus the save against it, it has a better chance to pass and take half than probably everything else around you. Same's true for all those things immune to mind-affecting effects that could pass the save against an illusion, then communicate to their allies, hey guys, this is an illusion, so when they make the save, they have a +4 on it. You could also convert immunities to just high resistance. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the Magus's spell list is very robust, it has all the control spells, but if you have a player at the table who wants to shout Shocking Grasp at the top of his voice and zot people to death, responding to him with something that's immune to electricity shuts off a lot of his build. Yes, I know, a Shocking Grasp Magus can do a lot of damage if built a certain way. If you give them immunity, oops, I'm just a bad fighter now. If you give them really high resistance, say even like resist 50 electricity or take half damage automatically from electricity, the Shocking Grasp Crit Fisher is not anywhere near as powerful as it was before, but can still get damage in, playing what he wants to play, being the character that he wants to play, and in theory, this should help us all have more fun. The same thing can be solved in the case of the Magus by giving creatures max hit points, as well as increasing their hit dice or adding extra hit points. This is especially true if you're very committed to a single boss fight type encounter, or you have a very big party, because action economy will win, and if 4 people in the party have built to optimize, you might not get a turn. It might be a lot easier for you if you've maxed the HP of your bad guy and converted his hit dice from 8s to say even 12s, allowing him to withstand more punishment. On that notion, also, I think GMing against the optimized party takes a lot of planning on your part. There have been a lot of military guys come in and out of my life ever since I started nerding on more than a casual basis, and I've heard it time and time again, previous planning prevents poor performance. It really does. When it boils down to it, the Pathfinder RPG is a game of math. That's what it is. It is not hard for you to look over at your optimized player and say, hey man, what's the average damage you do on a critical hit? I'm sure they're happy to give you that information, A, because they're probably hella proud of it, and from there, you can then determine how many hit points something needs to stand in an encounter without just getting one shot. There is nobody, not nowhere, not know how, that's not really proud of their character sheet, and to be honest, that's part of the reason we're making this video. It takes a long time to build a character, and we enjoy it. 4-5 hours spent on character creation is not uncommon, to say nothing of every time you level. Thus, when an ability gets shut down after building it for so long, it always feels really bad. But when you have the math to see what they do, you can more effectively build your encounters. And while I think it's unfair to use immunities, I do not think it is unfair to target the lowest save of the characters in the party. I do not think it is unfair to mind control people that are really powerful and then throw them at the rest of the party, because that's something at least a player can prep for. I should probably not ignore my will save. But if they want to play a class, again, we're going to say the illusionist, I only want to cast illusion spells in combat. It takes away the fun. When we say, nope, sorry, we see through it, and you're dead. Whoop! On top of that, when you have that information, you are capable of making more creative challenges than just challenges that beat the party. I'm literally just going to grab Nogitsune from my Discord, because his is really good. Lots of good aligned clerics against his necromancers is expected when you're playing a necromancer, sure. But having them show up no matter where you go like a creepy neckbeard stalker can get annoying. A few times as expected, in every damn settlement, not so much, doubly so when your GM optimizes them not only for undead killing, but lie detecting and disguise beating. Again, we should expect to fight things that are strong against us. We should not expect things constantly that are engineered to destroy us. Instead of just vomiting paladins at people, enemy necromancers offer a different challenge and can be even more effective because suddenly the hordes are switching sides every round of combat. In doing this, we've made a challenge for the player, for the party truly, as all the ghouls are suddenly hungry for the party's flesh, instead of just spamming holy radiance until all the undead are dead. This can be applied to every class in the game. My favorite example of this is the swashbuckler, snapping turtle style, panther style, snake style, the thing that the GM has to participate in order for that class to receive value. For opportune parry and riposte to work, you have to attack me. For panther style to work, I run through your threat range, and it provokes an attack of opportunity. Sure, fair strategy. Oh, you're really good at swordsmanship. I won't sword fight with you, I'll sword fight with other people, but it shuts off a class feature when you do so. Thus, again, taking away the fun. Against builds like that, I always recommend reactive monsters. A monster that does something when you hit it, when you interact with it, something that doesn't just sit there, soak up damage, hit you, then die. My favorite example of this will always be the Death Worm. This thing has a whole host of really good abilities, but what we're looking at is corrosive blood. If a creature damages a Death Worm with a piercing or slashing weapon made of metal looking at you, swashbucklers, the creature's blood deals 3d6 points of acid damage to the metal weapon. This is not halved against a metal object, but does have to penetrate the object hardness. The weapon's wielder can halve the damage by making a reflex save. Creatures that hit with a natural attack take 3d6 points of acid damage, reflex for half. You see where I'm going here? This thing's a CR6, so at this point, the swashbuckler probably has a +1 rapier. I think that's fair to say. That said, 4 or 5 attacks on, the swashbuckler is going to have to consider whether or not the opportune parry and riposte deed is working for him, as opposed to just flat being told no. Also, every time your monk punches a death worm, it's a DC 17 fort save, or they start taking con damage. Challenging, but allows them to do what they built to do. I think that's incredibly important to have fun in our game. I think it's okay to increase somebody's armor class versus critical hit confirmation rolls if that's what's coming at you. Immune to crits and sneaks sucks when you built a rogue and suddenly the room is full of oozes. Rather than being immune to critical hits, give them a sizable bonus to AC versus confirmation rolls. Again, the goal here is so we at least have a chance and aren't just flat shut off. But I guess what I'm getting at here is the 3 main rules of GMing the optimized party are: do not use immunities, know what your party can do, and challenge them in non-stereotypical ways. It is my firm belief that if we are able to do this, everyone at the table is going to have more fun. The GM will not feel like the party is bowling them over. The party will not feel like, oh, my abilities are shut off because the GM can't handle me. Poop. And I guess on a final note, well and truly, you, GM, if you're not comfortable playing with optimized characters or in a rules-heavy system, session 0, let them know. You are under no obligation to do this if you don't feel comfortable. Anyway, that's all the time I have for today. Do you guys have any more examples of when something really bad happened to you at the table and you lost your abilities? How do you as a GM deal with your optimized party? Down there, comments, let me know. I'm not sure what I'm building yet, but we have another patron request coming up next week, optimizing around the Harrow deck. Spicy card powers, here we go. Want to learn how to get the deck of many things in your game? Just kidding, no. You can't have that. See you next week.